In this video, I would like to give you a quick tip on compliant devices that can significantly improve the security posture of your corporate identities. The reason for that is, the reason for even recording this video is that I usually don't see this implemented, especially in small business organizations. It's usually implemented in large organizations, but it's not so often implemented in smaller organizations. And in my opinion, it's a huge mistake actually, because requiring compliant devices is actually one of the strongest controls that you can have in place to protect your identities. Imagine a phishing attack. Phishing is very common. The attacker sends a link to your users. Usually there is some urgency, like your mailbox is full, you need to sign in here to increase the capacity of your mailbox or something like that. And users tend to click the link and really fill in their credentials. Now you may say that, okay, but we have multi-factor authentication implemented. That's very good. That's great. If you have multi-factor authentication implemented and enforced for all users, that's perfect. It significantly improves the overall security posture of your environment. But attackers are usually, if it's a targeted attack, they are usually able to bypass even multi-factor authentication requirement. Because if they have some kind of real-time proxy in place, they are able to bypass or collect even the multi-factor authentication information from your users. So imagine that the user uses push notification via the Microsoft Authenticator application, which is actually quite secure. It's one of the most secure methods that are available, definitely much better than SMS or phone calls. Users need to type in the code and confirm the authentication. But if it's a real-time attack, the attacker can show the code on the malicious website that they sent to the user. Then the user sees the code and can confirm it in the application, which means that the attacker gets access to the user's identity even though multi-factor authentication was enforced. Or imagine another example. Another example would be token theft. Token theft is becoming more and more popular because organizations are already protecting their identities much better. So it's getting harder and harder for attackers to compromise identities via phishing or spear phishing or these traditional types of attacks that are targeting user identities, which means that attackers are shifting to different attack paths. And one of the attack paths that attackers started using is token theft. Token theft, you can imagine it as a malicious software that's deployed to a computer. And the goal of the malicious software is to collect tokens and send it to the attacker. It can be access tokens, it can be refresh tokens, it can be primary refresh tokens, it can be family refresh tokens, any types of tokens. Obviously, different types of tokens are differently protected. So usually primary refresh tokens are protected the best, especially when there is TPM 2.0 on the machine. But for instance, access tokens or refresh tokens are not so well protected, and it's usually possible to steal these tokens. And if the attacker is able to steal this token via some malicious code or malicious application, then the attacker doesn't need to even know the credentials for the account. They don't need to bypass any MFA requirement because they already have the token. So they simply use the token and they are in without even any authentication requirement. And then it doesn't matter if you have phishing resistant authentication enforced if the attacker is able to steal a token. To protect your users or your environment from token theft, the best you can do is implement and enforce TPM02 or use devices with TPM02 and use endpoint protection system, preferably with EDR. If you have endpoint protection system that's configured properly, it should be almost impossible to stall tokens because it should be blocked by the endpoint protection system. But if you allow users to work from personal devices, then those personal devices are probably not protected at all. You don't have any control over those devices typically. It's managed by the user. The user is local admin on the device. There is no endpoint protection deployed, or it's just a built-in endpoint protection that can be easily disabled. And it's a very easy target and actually very common target for attackers. They target private devices of your employees if you allow your employees to sign in from private devices. And it gives the attacker the same token with the same abilities to use the token or abuse the token actually. And that's why compliant device requirement is so important and so useful. Because when there is compliance device requirement implemented and enforced, it means that even if the attacker knows the credentials and is able to bypass the MFA or satisfy the MFA requirement, even if the threat actor is able to get some token, they are unable to actually use the token. If they don't have compliant device available, they will not be able to use the token because it will be blocked because you have the compliant device requirement in place. Which means that compliant device requirement is actually one of the strongest protection you can have implemented. In my opinion, it's much stronger than MFA, for example. Because MFA, like I said, it can be bypassed or satisfied. It's almost impossible to bypass or satisfy this compliant device requirement if you have it configured properly. And how you can enforce it? Well, simply by conditional access policies. So if you open Microsoft Entra ID, go to Security, Conditional Access, and Policies, and create a new policy here. You give the policy any name, so it can be like require compliant devices. Here you preferably target all users, of course with an exclusion for your Break-Glass account. You target any app, preferably all apps. And in the grant section, you check this checkbox for require device to be marked as compliant. This is the way how you can easily require compliant devices in your environment. There are actually two ways how you can enforce compliant devices in your environment. So one way is this with this grant and require device to be marked as compliant. The other one is that you can configure a condition here. The condition will be filter for devices. You turn it on and you include all devices that are not compliant. So the compliant status doesn't equal true. And the grant will be actually block. So for all devices that are not compliant, access will be blocked. So these are the options two options that you have. What's the difference between these two options? The difference is mainly the end user experience, because the end goal is pretty much the same. If the user is not using compliant device, access will be blocked, access will not be allowed. But user experience is different. So imagine a situation that user is for the first time signing in from a phone that's not managed by Intune or not managed at all. If the device is not managed at all, it means the device cannot be compliant. Because the way how a device can become compliant is that the device meets a compliance requirements. And the compliance requirements are defined in an MDM authority. It can be Intune, it can be System Center Configuration Manager, if it's integrated with Entra ID or Intune. It can be a third-party MDM as well. You can integrate third-party MDMs with Microsoft Entra ID as well. So even if you don't use Intune but you use a different MDM, you can still integrate it and you can still get compliance status in Microsoft Entra ID. But back to the difference between the two options that I just showed you. Um, the user experience is different because when you configure it like this, that you block access from non-compliant devices, user will see just block. So when they are using a non-compliant device, they will see just block, that the device doesn't meet the requirements and it's blocked. They are not provided with any option how to actually satisfy this requirement. And that's the reason between the two provided options. Because if you disable this filter for devices and choose this require device to be marked as compliant option, users are offered with the option to actually make their device compliant. So if you are, for instance, signing in from phone from your phone to Outlook, you will see a prompt to enroll your device to Microsoft Intune. So with this option, users are actually guided or provided with the option to satisfy the requirement and make the device compliant. Obviously, it depends if you actually allow end users to enroll devices to Microsoft Intune. And that's a good question and it's very questionable because in general, it's not recommended. In general, only administrators should be able to enroll devices to Microsoft Intune, and users should not be able to that. But if you are a small organization and you allow end users to enroll devices to Microsoft Intune, they can be provided with this option and they can actually satisfy the requirement by themselves. And that's the difference. But of course, if you don't allow it, then the end result is the same. So no matter what you choose, if you choose the block option or this required compliant device option, the end will be the same. Users will not be allowed to access their identities. So this is it. This is the configuration you can create. I definitely recommend starting with at least your privileged accounts. So maybe don't start with all users, but start with only selected directory roles, because the privileged roles, the most privileged roles, should be used only from compliant devices. There should be no way of using a privileged role from a non-compliant device. It's a high risk, and the number of administrators should be limited. So the preparation and or the scope of this policy would be limited when compared to all users in the organization. But the ultimate goal anyway should be to require compliant device for all users in your organization. Because like I said, it significantly improves the overall security posture because it stops or mitigates many risks related to identity compromise, either via tokens or token thefts, or direct identity compromise via phishing or spear phishing or any other form of identity compromise. That's all from my side for today. I hope you liked it. Uh, like the video, comment, share it if you like it. Don't forget to follow my Cybersecurity World blog. Also, don't forget to follow my social profiles on social networks such as LinkedIn, Twitter, Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. And that's really all from my side for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.